Today we're going to talk about becoming a CFRE. Welcome, everyone. And I know there are people from all over the world, Canada, South Africa, Australia. Welcome, 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 and of course the US. And we're glad you're here. Today I'm gonna introduce myself, and then our esteemed panel will introduce themselves. My name is Jack Alotto. That's my picture up the top there. And I am here in Rancho Mirage, California. I'm a trainer and a facilitator at the Fundraising Academy at National University. And I think I've been a CFRE for maybe at least 10 years, but I'm proud to say I just recertified last Friday. So I am back in business for another 3 years. Why don't we start with Amie, and then you guys can introduce yourselves, where you're from, and what you do for a living.
Awesome. I'm Amie Bossi, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a consultant with Gladiator Consulting, and I love specializing my work with small to mid-sized nonprofits, but I've worked with organizations of all sizes, and I have recertified for the third time. So I've been a CFRE for a while.
All right, happy Tuesday, everyone. My name is Andrew Polter, and I'm calling in from Grand Rapids, Michigan, on the west side of the state. I serve as the Executive Director of Development for the College of Medicine at the University of Cincinnati Foundation, and yes, that is a mouthful. I am, let's see, I've recertified at least once, and I think I've been a CFRE since 2019.
Great. Dane.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Dane Bland. I use he, him pronouns. I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada. It's great to be here with you all. I am the Director of Development and Engagement for the Toronto Arts Foundation, which is Toronto's citywide charity for the arts. I've had the pleasure of being a CFRE since 2017. So great to be here with you all.
Great. And Marla.
Hello, I'm Marla Smith, and I'm coming to you from the Niagara region in Ontario, Canada, and glad to be here. I work as the Director of Development and Communications at Pathstone Foundation, which is a children's mental health facility. And I have been a CFRE since 2020 and thrilled to be here today.
Great. Thank you so much. So let's review the agenda, today's agenda. So as I said earlier, we are recording this webinar and you will get it via email in about 48 hours. If you have questions, there is a question panel running through this panel discussion today. If you have questions for any of our ambassadors at any point, feel free to drop it in the questions box. Two of our fantastic team are on this webinar today, Paul Cavazos and Christine Johnson, and I welcome them. Glad you guys are here with us. They're going to be monitoring the questions and will bring the most popular questions to the panel. We'll also do our best to answer any questions that you have and provide those resources that you will need to successfully complete the CFRE journey, which I hope you're starting today. So let's talk a bit about, today we're going to talk about the history of CFRE, why become a CFRE, 3 steps to become a CFRE, getting support, and a Q&A throughout. So about the CFRE is recognized globally. It's an accredited credential for fundraising professionals. And let me tell you guys, it's the only global recognition out there. The CFRE group has been around for 40 years. This means the CFRE credential is well established and widely known within the fundraising space. Way back in the Stone Age, when I got my CFRE, it was not as well known, but now it is recognized throughout the world. So, and in 30 countries and territories throughout the world, you're in good company, guys, with like-minded professionals who are grounded in the best practices of ethical fundraising. Can't emphasize that enough. So let's talk a little bit about the Certified Fundraising Executive. As I said, it was established in 1981. Let me make sure I'm on the right slide with you guys. Okay, so there are many benefits of becoming a CFRE. Many benefits. It advances your career. Without a doubt, the CFRE advances your career. It's advanced my career. It builds credibility. It builds credibility not only with your donors, but with your peers in the fundraising community, and definitely with your board and the people who are the administrators of your organization. I remember when I got my CFRE, people were like, wow, congratulations. I'm glad you got it. So let me ask the panelists, though, to chime in here and tell me what they have found to be why they became CFREs. Let's start with Andrew.
Right. Great question, Jack, to kick us off. You know, when I was considering my CFRE journey and starting this, I really looked up to those individuals in the profession who had those 4 letters after their name. And for me, I wanted to know, what's this all about to become a CFRE and why did you choose it? Really, I learned many of the things that you said, Jack, is it provides credibility for your own work. It provides credibility amongst peers. And now in my position, I am constantly across the table from MDs, PhDs, JDs, you name it. And these 4 letters have provided that same level of credibility and confidence that I am an expert in this profession. So, Jack, there are a million ways to answer that, but really for me, it's provided confidence in myself, confidence amongst my peers and colleagues, and also confidence amongst my donors that I work with, knowing that what I say is backed up with science, is backed up with this globally accredited credential.
Excellent. Marla, would you share with us why you became a CFRE?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew mentioned a lot of the different things that I thought of. But the other thing that I didn't expect along the journey of learning about the CFRE was how much it would affect me as a person, how much I would learn about not only myself, but where I wanted to go in my career and the type of fundraiser I really wanted to be. And I started to delve more into ethics and understanding the responsibility that we have as fundraisers to ensure that donor funds are being used, that our missions are aligned with what we're looking to do. And I found not only all of the things Andrew said, which was my original reason, but it really enhanced me as an individual, as a fundraiser.
Nice. Amie, tell us your rationale for becoming a CFRE.
Absolutely. Second, what everyone has already said, especially the part about ethics. I think when I first shared that I was choosing to go into this field of work, my parents, my family were like, wait, you're going to ask people for money and give them nothing in return but good feelings? So ethics are so incredible and so important to the work that we do. And it's not something that's top of mind for everyone. And until someone does something wrong. So it's definitely something we uphold greatly. And I am so proud that CFRE and other memberships that I'm associated with, like AFP, tout ethics as front and center. And then I also have looked young for my age for a while, and I don't think people took me as seriously as they could or should have. And having having the CFRE behind my name just really proved that I knew what I knew and could show it.
Nice. That's great. Thank you. Dane.
I'm going to chime in and second, especially Amy's last point. I got my CFRE when I was 26, and it was an opportunity for me to actually, I wasn't BSing on my resume that I did the things I said I did, because someone actually went and looked and went, hey, yeah, that's real. And it lends an air of legitimacy, and I think it really springboarded my career in terms of where I was able to go early. I'm an ambitious person. I want to have leadership roles and take those opportunities. And I think one of the things that hiring managers look for, especially with someone who's, either new to the profession or newly in their career, is a demonstration of commitment to being around for a while. I think fundraisers kind of love our own, right?
That's
And
right.
you want to know that we're going to be in this for the long haul together. And so I think that there's sort of a demonstration of professional commitment with the CFRE. And now being a hiring manager, I'm not going to only hire somebody because they've had a CFRE. But if I'm going to get 300 job applications, I'm sure going to read the ones with comma CFRE at the end a little bit more closely. And so I'd
Yeah.
rather be in that second pile than that first pile, if I'm being honest with you. And so it's a very legitimate reason. So when I'm an ambassador and taking calls, I say to people, are you right now in the last job you want to have? Like, and if the answer to that question is no, if you have a career aspiration beyond where you're at, or you want to consult post-retirement, whatever it is, get your CFRE because it's
Right.
going to matter. It will matter. And it pays dividends.
Right. I think one of the most another really important reason to achieve your CFRE is all the people on this webinar, we're all fundraisers. And our goal as fundraisers are to advance the mission of the causes we work in. I know that when I became a CFRE, I learned skills and techniques. I really understood the importance of relationship building to advance mission. And if we really want to impact our communities, as that second to the last is, the CFRE is the place where we could learn skills that we could bring to advancing that mission, raising more money, building more relationships. And that is so important to me. So there are 3 steps that we talk about in becoming a CFRE. The first step is the application. So the application today, what we're focusing on is the initial certification. So we're mostly be talking about the application and the exam processes. But I do want to note that CFREs must recertify every 3 years to stay current. I just did that last Friday. Yippee-yi-yi for me. I'm so happy. While there is no exam for recertification, thank you, you will need to submit a recertification every 3 years. More information about the recertification process is available on the CFRE website. Before I move on, Paul, are there any questions that you could see in the chat? Anything that we might want to answer?
Yeah, so we have some questions related to counting performance points, which I'm sure we'll get to later on in the presentation. But quickly, I posted an answer to that so everyone can reference that in the Q&A portion. Another question that we're having is related to DEI and honoring the intentions of donors while adhering to the removal of DEI. I'm not sure if you'll speak on that later as well.
Well, that's a great question. I don't know if anybody on the panel would like to respond to that. It sounds like, Paul, the question is, with the removal of DEI, especially here in the States, we're seeing that come off of universities. And as fundraisers, we certainly ascribe to diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. So anybody on the panel who would like to share their thoughts around that, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, this is Amie again. I'm actually about to write a blog post about this, about how even though funding has been threatened to be cut and folks have run to their websites and scrubbed things from grant applications, and there's no immediate, we haven't been mandated to do so yet. There's no legal requirement. So I've been telling folks that are my clients to not be an early adopter and to stay true to your mission, vision, and values. And if the DEI is integral to your work and part of what you've been doing, there's no need to run and change until you're actually legally being told to do it.
Great. I think Andrew or one of the panelists mentioned the importance of ethics, not only for AFP, but definitely I see ethics in every single domain of the CFRE process. And I believe that DEIA is an ethical consideration aside from what we might hear from the government or legal authorities. And having said that, I'm going to move on to the application process. The application process includes 5 steps. And I think it's really important that we share those, and definitely we'll ask our panel if they have any ideas around this or any things that could help you guys. So here's the thing. The first thing that we say is use your personal email address because you may change jobs. You can always easily assess the application. Log in and out of your application as many times as you like. That's also true from my experience with recertification. You could log in, you can log out. Remember, tracking your points as you go. Do not wait until you're ready to submit before entering all of your information. That is, I think, really an important point here as we go along. Make your testing appointment. Once you get approved, once your CFRE, the CFRE staff reviews your application and they say you are approved, then make your testing appointment, take the exam, and receive your score. One of the things that I see in my study groups that I have, people come up to that deadline. They come up right up to that deadline. They have a year in which to take the exam, and they say, Jack, I only have 2 weeks to take the exam. And then they're rushing, they're cramming. So one of the big tips that I'm going to give, and I'm going to let my panel also talk about these tips, is don't wait until the last minute, guys. It is not a good idea. Anybody want to chime in and support that idea? Come on.
Oh yeah, I know, I agree. You know, definitely it's one of those exams that it takes more than memorization to be able to be successful in obtaining your CFRE. And what that means is we're really looking with the CFRE credential for you to be able to absorb information and be able to interpret it in situational practice, in situational perspectives. So you need to be able to rationalize those thoughts and really absorb it in a quick manner. And so there's an element of your past experience and an element of learning that you need to integrate together. And I think that's why when we talk about the fundraising profession being an art and a science, this is really the perfect climax and trajectory of the art and the science coming together. And so for me, I definitely found that 3 to 6 month window was the best for studying because you were able to absorb information, think about it, and in some cases, implement it in your workplace. So you had live experience with the things you were learning about, which moved it from short-term memory to long-term memory for you, so easier for you to recall. And then I think the other thing that was really important was not waiting too long. So I think, you know, Jack talked about waiting a short period of time to write your test. There's also the con to waiting a little too long, dragging it out, and, you know, some of the concerns about feeling fatigued and overwhelmed. So there is a happy balance there, Jack.
Yeah. Anyone else on the panel like to share some thoughts around these 5 points about the application process?
I mean,
I just want
to say, like, it is free. Signing up on my CFRE for an applicant, that part is not the paying for it part. If you're 1 year in, you start it now. There was a question in the chat about like, how do I track my education resources and physical documentation and all those kinds of things. If you start on my CFRE and input all of your stuff as you take it, and you just have a little folder in your email for, hey, I went to this course and hey, I did this thing. Though it's so easy to start, and there's no obligation, you know, once you've actually started your application to hit submit on it ever. I think you should, but there's not an obligation to. But I do completely agree with you, Jack, that once you've hit submit, you don't want that to expire. You want to like the submit is the like gut check, let's do this. But there's no reason that everyone on this panel shouldn't have a MyCFRE account, you know, at 3:05 p.m. today, Eastern time.
And Dane, I think you nailed it on the head. You don't pay for it as you are tracking those professional points and building that application. You pay when you submit, which I think is really a key point. Andrew or Amie, any tips or any things that you experienced during that application process?
Yeah, Jack, I would say for me, when going down this journey of actually pursuing your CFRE seriously, I would encourage folks to think about the end in mind first and then reverse engineer the process. I'm a big fan of the concept starting at the end and then finding out really what it takes to get to that point.
That's right.
Okay, I know that I have to do this application. What's all included in that? How much time is this going to take me? So
Right.
yes, you could just go and take the exam tomorrow and maybe you'll pass, maybe you won't. But if I give myself 6 to 9 months, man, I'm really going to do great at this. I'm going to have time to acquire the resources needed, which are listed on the CFRE website. I'm going to have time to do those practice exams. So I'm sure we're going to get more into the preparation, but I would really
Sure.
encourage you to think from the end and every step that needs to happen until that point.
I like starting at the back end and working. One of the things that I always say, Andrew, in my study groups, when you pick your test date, then start from that date, work backwards, build a study plan, and figure out what you have to do to achieve that CFRE on that date. Amie, if you'd like to join in, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Absolutely. I tell folks the same thing. It's completely free to start your CFRE account. So if you decide tomorrow that if you win the lottery and move to a private island, you won't get penalized for starting this.
Nice.
And then also use an email account that is not directly tied to your current place of business, because your job might change between now when you set this up and when you actually take the test. Also,
Yeah.
your job might change over the times that you recertify. So keep all of your tracking and all of your CFRE related items in a special folder in a good personal professional, email address, not your work email address.
Yeah, great. Good tips, guys. Thank you. So let's talk about the application requirements. Okay. The CFRE application works on a points system. Okay. As you enter your information for 3 categories, and what are the 3 categories, guys? Education, 80 points, professional practice, 36 points, professional performance, 55 points. And here's the wonderful thing about the application process that CFRE has established. When you put things into your application, CFRE automatically calculates the points for you. You don't have to figure out what the points are worth. Points for all 3 categories must be earned within the past 5 years. I love that requirement, because that means that you are in the point in your career where you are ready to earn that CFRE. Okay. So if you're applying in 2025, your points will be accepted from January 1st, 2020 forward. The one exception, and I am thankful for this because I happen to have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, your academic degree points never expire. Thank you for doing that. That's really important. Education points come from a combination of fundraising learning opportunities. And I get this question all the time from people. I don't have enough education points. Guys, there are so many free education points that you can get. If you're a member of AFP, go to their website. There are free points there. Most of the big consulting firms, the database, they all have educational programs where you could get education points from. My employer at National University has a website where you could get points. So it's really important that you go out there and look for free continuing education credits as you go, especially as it relates to that. Professional performance points must be earned from a paid role, guys. If you hold a full-time fundraising position, at least 50% of your job duties must consist of fundraising related activities. 50% of your job duties must be related to fundraising activities. If you're part-time, and there are lots of part-time fundraisers out there, that means 100% of your duties must be fundraising related. The third thing, professional performance points may include actual funds raised, communication projects, or management projects. Let me talk to the panel for a minute. What are your tips, guys? And I'm going to start with Marla. What are your tips for earning or tracking educational professional practice, professional performance points? Marla?
Okay, so CFRE has updated their website. So Amie shared earlier that a really good tip is to save your professional development in your email. But now CFRE actually allows you to upload those documentations right into CFRE, which means it's one less step for you. So that's, for example, your ticket that you would have ordered to attend a fundraising session, the outline, any type of piece that shows that you went to that session, you can upload into your CFRE professional development credit. And so I love that feature, and kudos to CFRE for making life easier for us.
Yeah, definitely. Amie, what kind of advice would you give? Any tips for the group?
Yes, absolutely. The same thing. I say jokingly, there's no I in fundraising, but there absolutely is. But there's no I in resource development. So someone asked about how they count what they've raised. And just remember that you don't have to go in and specifically say, oh my gosh, I earned 50 cents of that $1. You don't track it that way. We talk about a culture of philanthropy and that we raise money in a team setting. So you track campaigns, and how your team or you, how much you're responsible for that campaign, and then the appropriate documentation to show for that.
Nice. Andrew, what tips do you have?
Yeah, I've got two. First builds off of Amy's comments. If you are in annual giving, it is hard to parse out and say, okay, Andrew did this and Jack raised this piece, and forget about that. You can capture all of those dollars. If not for your work, would this have happened? Think through that lens. Also, on the educational piece, yes, that is a significant amount, 80 points. However, when you start thinking about attending AFP Icon, which is coming up very soon, LEAD, you have access to so many hours of content. And guess what? They also record some videos after the fact.
Yes.
If you watch that video, or if a colleague went to the conference and has access to a video and you watch that video, you can also count those points. So you can really maximize your time spent at one conference. The third thing I'll say is read through the subpoints of what comprises educational hours. If you're attending, that's one thing. If you're speaking, that actually multiplies to a factor of 2. If you're speaking on new content, that's a factor of 3. So read those subpoints, because you may have points right now that you weren't aware of.
Yeah, great points. Dane.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to plus up all the everything that everyone said, especially that last point Andrew made. In guiding people who have not yet signed on to my CFRE and actually started an application, almost 201, most of them are actually closer than they think they are. When they actually start the application and they start going, oh wait, I attended this, and oh, my university degree counts, and and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have 73 points and I need to go to a couple webinars for education. Great. Or I've 34 points of professional practice. I guess in 2 months I'm going to qualify. And so I think people get a lot closer than they think. So that's number one. Is that these look like big numbers and they don't have to be. And you're probably closer if you're if you're worried. And the other thing I'll say is, and I think it was a point Amie was making, is that CFRE is generous, I think, about what it counts towards not just in terms of professional performance, but also, there's a lot of room in education and in practice as well. And if in doubt, just reach out to the team. The team is wonderful. They're in the chat right now responding to as many questions as they can. If you aren't sure, reach out and ask. It's the worst thing that can happen is, okay, that's not going to be a yes. But I think for the most part, the team is really willing to work with you to make it.
I think that I'm going to reiterate that last point. I get questions all the time. Will this count? Will that count? And Paul could attest to the fact that I just forward the email to Paul and say to the person who's asking me the question, I don't really have an answer for this. I have no idea about this, but Paul is the guy, or Christine will answer your questions. And speaking of Paul and Christine, are there any questions in chat that the panel can answer?
Wow, yeah, there's a ton of great questions coming in. Thank you, everyone. Please just try to put your questions in the Q&A panel so that we can keep them distinct from the webinar chat, if possible. That would help me to sort through all the questions that are coming in. One of these great questions is somebody had was finding it challenging to input information on the application correctly. Do you have any advice for, let's say, for example, when you're filling out professional performance, professional practice, to sort of make that process go easier?
Any ideas, guys? Anybody would like, just unmute yourself, anyone on the panel.
I mean, Paul, you're such a wonderful help. Maybe, you know,
Yes.
if folks reach out to the CFRE team, it seems like that's the real answer. If you're really stuck, you know, there's a team of people who are available to help you. I know they get a lot of the CFRE team is small and mighty.
Yeah.
So you bear with them for a tiny bit, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm pretty sure they'll get back to you and give you the right answer that you
Yeah.
need. That's why I direct people with that all the
Yeah,
time.
I agree with that. Listen, in my experience working with both of these people, I mean, they're awesome and they're quick, they're fast, they're responsive. That I don't know any other organization I work with that is as responsive to questions as the CFRE employee team is. So I definitely reiterate that. Amy, would you like, I see you unmuted yourself.
Yeah.
What would you like to say? Go for it.
My piece of information is that we want you to succeed. We want you to join the CFRE team. And if we don't know the answer, then we will connect you with someone who does.
That's
so
right.
I have often, even though I've been involved with CFRE for many years, reached out in my recertification or other questions when I'm speaking to ambassadors or to
Great.
potential CFREs as an ambassador.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
The one more great question that I keep
Okay.
seeing is, when can you start accruing points towards your recertification? I know this is kind of jumping the gun, but I'm seeing this question a lot. So, when can you start earning points towards your recertification? Is it
You know what? Can I answer that? I think the
Yes.
day you get that CFRE certification, the day they tell you that you are a CFRE, start recording them. Then this is my big fail. Let's keep this between us, but I fail to do this every recertification process. Don't be like Jack, okay? Start recording it somewhere. Record it in Google or I think you can record it at the CFRE website. You know, start recruiting the things that you've done, the articles you've written, that where you've attended workshops, all of those things. The day you receive that notification that you're a CFRE. That's my advice. Anybody else on the panel? Go for it. Andrew.
Fully agree, Jack. Just start that next application. It's going to look very similar to your initial application. However, you'll notice that the numbers will be adjusted down to capture the fact that it's now every 3 years. Again, your initial is 5, and then it's on to 3 years. So just start that. It's so easy. And what I do for the dollars raised is I do one bucket for, let's say, fiscal year 25. That's what we're currently in for my organization. And I just edit that number when another gift comes in. And so I can really easily track, this is fiscal year 25, then I'm going to look at 26. I try to keep it as simple as possible. And again, if anybody has questions about this, there's a great team. I'm sure also anybody on this panel will be happy to walk you through the process. We've seen this website quite a bit, so I know my way around, and I would be happy to personally help out.
And we'll put our contact information at the end in the chat for people who want to connect with us directly. Okay, let's talk about the CFRE test windows. So the thing about these test windows, let me get to there. There I am. As part of the application process, you'll select your preferred test windows for the CFRE exam. As you can see on this slide, guys, there are 4 testing windows throughout the year, and each window has a corresponding deadline on when you'll need to submit your application to be able to sit for that exam. After your application is approved, I said this before, after your application is approved, you have 1 year to sit for the exam, okay? It's important that you not wait to the last minute. When people come and send me an email or they send me a text saying, I have 10 days to take the test, it's going to be too late for you to get in that prep mode to do that. Any suggestions from our panel? I'd love to hear from you guys. Anything.
I signed up for my testing window and forgot about it. So don't do that either, because I set it for so far in advance.
Oh,
and you know, I thought I did not have enough prep time for myself to
No.
study, but I also remember that I needed to trust myself and that I know this work. It's not digging deep into obscure questions. It's a general knowledge, you know, test, and have confidence in yourself, but also do study. Don't think you're just going to show up and take the test and ace it.
That's true. Oh, you know, that's a really good point. I would add to that. I can't tell you the number of people who haven't passed the test yet. They say, I've been doing fundraising for 15 years. I didn't think I needed to study for the test. You know, I'm an accomplished fundraiser. Okay, fine. You know, it's like, you know, I've been doing math for all my life. Doesn't mean I'm going to take a math test next week and pass it, or a calculus test to be more exact. Any other tips on this, guys, from the panel? Just unmute yourself, please. Go for it, Andrew.
Well, Jack, I see you have this next slide up. So if we want to start talking about the content in the exam, I have some things to say about that as well. But again,
Okay.
going back to the reverse engineering idea of, if you see those 4 testing windows, choose the one that works for you. Also, I believe there are 2 circumstances where, one, you can pay a nominal fee to change your test date if that truly doesn't work out. And I think we still have a policy. This is going back to COVID times, but if you're truly, like, just reach out to the group. We can try to be accommodating. If that window doesn't work for you, we'll have a discussion and we'll make it work. But just start at the end and make sure that you're ready for it.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, the next slide is up. So let's talk about the exam. 200 multiple choice questions, 4 options per question. There's 4 answers, A, B, C, and D, for each question. Your job is to select the best answer. The scoring range is between 200 and 800, and a passing score is 500. The exam covers 6 domains, guys, and I frequently talk about this in my study groups. On the screen, you can see how many questions there are for each knowledge domain and how much of the exam each one takes up. For me, I think it's so important to do the math. If I look at this slide carefully, I see securing the gift, relationship building, and leadership and management are 3 big domains. Yeah, I like to say this to people. CFRE stands for Certified Fundraising Executive. It doesn't stand for Certified Fundraising Coordinator or Certified Fundraising Manager. When you go through this process that you see up on this board, you are going to be an executive. You're going to learn skills. You're going to learn about relationship building. You'll learn a lot about ethics and about leadership, marketing, etc. And when you achieve that CFRE, which you will, I saw someone said they're taking the test on May 21st. Jennifer, you're going to be a CFRE on May 21st. Okay. When you go through these and this domain, you're going to be a better fundraiser and you're going to be a certified fundraising executive at the end. Tips from the panel. Any tips at all? Andrew, go ahead. I'm sorry. Was that Marla?
Yeah, so I think Jack's right. You know, taking a look at the number of questions and really understanding where you want to prioritize your time, understanding which areas you have experience in and which areas are sort of newer and areas you want to spend time in. So for example, if you are a development coordinator or officer and you have less experience in the leadership and management area, think about how you want to spend your time learning those competencies so that you can develop into that executive that Jack talked about. And those are really the areas that'll really help take you from being a fundraiser here to that next level. And that's the growth that you kind of go through in this journey when you are studying and taking the test for the CFRE. But also take a look at the quantity of questions.
Yeah.
Ethics represents 18. but questions on the exam. But like Jack said at the beginning, ethics is sort of woven into all elements of the exam and in our profession. So you'll want to keep an ethical lens as you're answering questions with you. So I think those were really the bigger things I wanted to cover.
Nice. Thank you, Marla. Dane, go for it.
Look, I think the thing that my most useful tip is to utilize, if you're going to pay for one thing, I think you should be paying for the practice exam.
Oh, yeah.
Free
Oh,
practice
yeah.
exam. That's like the one thing, because the way I used it, first of all, if you just keep doing it over and over and over again, you're going to start to memorize the answers to the questions. So it's not the only tool you should use, but it's real useful, because if I took it blind, like I hadn't done any studying and took the practice exam, and I actually passed the prospect and donor research thing without any studying. So it's like, okay, I just got to sort of keep up on that, but I miserably failed the volunteer involvement component. I did that practice exam. Hey, not my forte, but that's where I had to focus my studying. So it actually really helps
Great.
to be a bit of a rudder for you, I think. And then you can, come back in a month or 2 months and take it again after you've done some studying and gone, hey, you know what? Now I'm passing everything. And it really helps. And the other benefit, of course, to the practice exam is that it doesn't just train you on what kind of questions you've got and sort of point you where to study. There's also a way that the CFRE exam asks questions. It's one of those classic multiple choice exams where all of the answers are a little right, but there's a most right one. And it really helps you practice for, how to do the exam on top of also what content you should be focusing on. And I think that's the most sort of useful way to sort of focus your study and to figure out, where your strong points are and where you're not going to be as strong, and what you should not worry about, but what you need to be thinking about.
Yeah. And I love the study guide. I love the practice test, and I love the study guide. And we're going to talk about those in the next slide. Andrew, what are tips that you would like to share?
Yeah, I would say when I was taking this exam, all of my experience was major gift work. And so, like others, I maybe lacked in certain areas, and that's okay. We all come into this exam from a different perspective and different experiences. I will say this exam is about best practices across the board. It will humble you if you think that this is just about being a great major gift or plan giving officer exam. That is not the focus for this. So once you start diving into these questions and the practice materials that others have mentioned, the exam, the books that are out there, the resources, you'll understand that there's actually a perspective to this exam, a way to answer these questions. And Jack, I know we're going to talk about that next. So I would say just focus on your experience where you've been so far and prioritize your time.
Right.
You're seeing 39 questions under securing the gift. That's going to be a big part of this. Not so much volunteer involvement, but be prepared for those questions as well.
Love that tip. Amie.
I remind folks that you're taking the same test that someone is taking in New Zealand, that someone is taking in Saudi Arabia, and it is best knowledge. And I was terrified at the time that I took it that I didn't know enough about planned giving. So I decided that I would read every book about planned giving. And it doesn't dive deep into, like I said, the obscure questions. It's top level knowledge. And we want you to succeed at this. We want you to be part of the CFRE club, the CFRE team, and all of the things on the CFRE exam prep website, from the practice exam to the resource reading list to the study groups, will set you up for success. And be honest with yourself about how you learn and how you study. No one is a huge fan of standardized tests, or maybe you are, but don't let that be the barrier for you. That's just how we have to do this so that we can have this CFRE accreditation to begin with. We have to do that standardized test to make it as equal as possible for everyone. But if you know that you don't do well in a study group, then don't join a study group.
Yeah.
Be serious with yourself about how you learn.
Right. And we've got some resources listed. Look at this picture. This is a picture. Let me see. I'm looking at my screens over there. This is the picture of the woman with the book. This is a must-have book. Look, I am not paid by CFRE to say this. This is the book they publish. Why you wouldn't buy it, I have no idea. And the wonderful thing about this book, guys, on page 90, I always tell people in my study groups, start on page 90 and then go back to the beginning, because on page 90, they tell you, CFRE tells you how they constructed the test. They tell you about techniques that you will need to pass the test, like what is a STEM question? What are distractors? This is a required book. It's inexpensive. And I hope somebody will put a link in chat to where you could buy this. Dane mentioned something really important that I think is great. The CFRE practice test. You could get it for 30, 60, or 90 days. I tell people there's a great reason why they should be doing the practice test. And yes, if you keep taking that test over and over again, you're going to memorize the questions and you're going to memorize the answers. But there are two really important reasons why you should purchase this. Again, we're not paid staff here. We're telling you this because we believe it. I believe it. Okay. When you take that practice test, you're going to learn two things. One, you're going to learn things about where you need to create that study plan. If you take the practice test, and I tell people, mimic the real test, take 4 hours, take 200 questions. And when you get your scores for each of those domains, then create a study plan. That's number one. It tells you where you need to work. Number two, those test questions are created by CFRE. Guess what? They're the same people who create the questions that are on the real tests. Learn how they construct the question. Learn how they construct the answers. They tell you in the study guide, everything you need to answer the question is in the question. Believe it. It's true. Any tips from you guys based on these resources before we move on? Marla, what do you got?
You know what? I agree. The study guide and the practice exam. The practice exam, I actually did a different philosophy than Jack said. Jack, you mentioned doing the study exam first, but I actually did the practice exam just before, 2 weeks before I went to sit for my test, because I wanted to challenge myself to see where was I at in my studying and was I ready? And what I'll tell you from my experience and a few others that I've worked with is that my practice exam score was almost identical to my CFRE score.
Nice.
And that was a really great litmus test for me because, of course, I didn't know going into my exam that. But I could sit there going, okay, I understand the concept, like Jack said, page 90 in the book. I understood how the questions were being framed. I could understand what I was looking to be able to get. And I felt like I could go into the exam a little bit calmer because I would sit there and say to myself, I followed the process. I followed this. If I don't get it right, I don't get it right. But I felt like I had done all of those things and I didn't go into the exam as nervous.
Good. Great. I know we're going to run out of time, so I'm going to ask my panelists to please keep it brief. Amie.
I think I put it in the chat, but all of the questions are pulled from the resource reading list. If you stick to those, you're good.
Good. Thank you. Dane. Then Andrew.
You know what? Like maybe the one thing I'll say is I'm not. I think a lot of people are study group people or talk it through people. That's not my vibe. And so I just sort of want to say you should study and practice and learn in whatever way fits you best. There's
That's
no right answer. Just because you've downloaded a checklist or a guide doesn't mean you have to do all of the things on there. Whatever's going to get you from point A to point B is going to be the thing. And at the end of the day, the fact that you're studying is the win. So just do whatever works for you.
Great. Andrew.
Two things. First, understand that there is I don't want to say bias, that's probably not the right word, but there is a framework a lens that CFRE sees the world through. And so you need to shut off your brain and really treat this like you're learning for the first time. This is what this definition means. And I think when I was going through this process, I was frustrated because to me, a board member meant something very different than the definition of a board member and the responsibilities associated through the lens of CFRE. So learn for the first time. Also, if you get questions wrong, that's okay.
Yeah.
Try to peel back the onion a little bit and understand okay, why did I get that one wrong?
Right.
And then you can be prepared again to see through that lens of CFRE.
Good. Good advice. I don't remember what my score was, but I'll tell you this, no one's ever asked me what my score was. So you need a 500, as we said in the last slide, get that 500, you're on your way. Okay, initial certification fees. So the standard fee is $875, but you get a discount. If you're a member of the AFP, AHP, CASE, whatever the organization is, $175 off. Listen, that's for me a nice dinner at a great restaurant with about 10 people. Okay. Fees include application review and taking the exam at Pearson VUE test centers. And it's really important that one of the things I tell people all the time, before you go and take your test, visit the test center the week before. Make sure it fits what you need. Here's another thing, and I'm going to ask somebody to put this in chat. I love the blog that's at cfre.org about asking your employer to support you in this effort by paying the fees associated with it. Some people even get books from their employer. And if they won't do it, if they won't invest in your professional development, then invest in it yourself. That's how I did it. No one wanted to pay for my certification fee. No one wanted to pay for the resources I need. I said, Jack, this is an investment in me as a fundraiser. And that's what I want to leave you with as we go to the next slide. So getting support, as I said, 50% of CFRE say their employer paid for it. I think Andrew said earlier, or Dane, or somebody said earlier, once they got their CFRE, the world of employment opened to them. For me, as a CFRE, I am now a certified facilitator. You cannot be a certified facilitator through AFP Global until you achieve the CFRE. And lots of other things have opened up for me career-wise as well as personal. I think Marla said personally she got a lot out of it. I urge you to talk to your employer, read that blog, and you'll find that there's lots of things. Now, we've got about 8 minutes left. I know there are some questions out there. Paul and Christina, any significant questions out that you would like the panel to answer? Let's open that up for panel discussions. My next study group, if I might say, starts May 17th. And I'll put my email in chat. You could email me. I'll add it to you. I'll add you to that group. I already have 24 people in that group. So the more the merrier. I don't care where you are. We'll make it happen.
So I do have one question
Okay.
that seems to be popping up a lot, and I think this would be a great one to ask the various panelists. Did you all test in person or remotely? And do you have any advice on which is the better method or testing, or can you speak to the remote versus in-person testing?
In person. Do
In
it in
person.
person. Do it in person. I'll tell you one thing. It's a little intimidating, I think, when you first go in. They scan your face and with a webcam, and you have to give your ID and you put all your stuff in a locker. So be prepared that you're walking into kind of a stressful, testy environment. But then when you actually sit down, you don't have distractions. There's nothing, your laundry isn't beeping, no one's knocking on your door, all of these kinds of things. It's also worth noting that an in-person exam is invigilated, whereas an online exam is invigilated quite a bit more strictly. Because they don't know that you're not cheating, right? So they have to look at your room and check all of these things. And if your partner knocks on the door and comes in and gives you a tea, maybe you're cheating, and they're going to ask you about it, and it's just real stressful. So I think it's worth it if you live anywhere close to a testing center to just go and do it in person.
Right.
But no, it's a little scary at first.
You know what, Dane? I want to add to that. How many cats do you think have caused CFREs to fail their tests? A lot. Cats walk in the room, pull the plug out of the computer. The husband, the wife, the child walks in the room. Okay. I can't tell you the number of cats who have caused CFRE candidates to fail. There's so many of them out there. I love cats, just so you know that. But I prefer the in-person. Go to the test center, check it out, talk to the people. They'll talk to you. Tell them, listen, is it too hot? Is it too cold? Is it whatever? go there and talk to the people. They're not your adversaries. Marla, what do you think?
I did in person too. There was no virtual option. But I agree with you, Jack. I was more like, I'd be more concerned now about someone walking in, the doorbell ringing, having to go pee because you can't even go to the bathroom. And so I would be more worried about that, but those are my
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'd rather in person.
Yeah. And other able people have had issues with the virtual test. The proctor doesn't know that. I remember a woman who was in a wheelchair. She told me that the proctor kept telling me to sit up straight. Well, this is as straight as I get. Okay. So there are some things I say go to the test center. Andrew, what do you think?
I think we have full consensus. Go in person, take it seriously. It's going to be such an interesting experience. If you have not taken a standardized test in a while, it had been a long time.
Yeah.
And we actually didn't offer virtual at the time, so that was my only option. But somebody's going to be taking their GMAT or this other standardized test. Just
Right.
go in, focus. They give you noise canceling headphones, at least at my site. And I believe I was even able to write down a few notes real quick at the beginning. So if you need to brain dump, get it out, focus. You got 4 hours to go forwards, backwards. To be honest, I think I was out of there in 2. So you got 4 hours, you probably won't need it.
Great. I want to say one thing. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. Myself and these 4 people who are on this panel, as well as another 195 people who are known as ambassadors, we want to get involved. We want to hear from you. We want to assist you in your CFRE journey. It matters to us. It matters to our profession. So reach out to us, guys. We're there. You can find out, I'm sure, all of us on LinkedIn, or you could find us at CFRE's website, or you could, talk to someone at CFRE like Sarah Espinoza. She'll give you the contact information you need. Any final thoughts, Paul and Christine? I'm sorry I haven't involved you guys in enough. Anything you want to share with us? What are you hearing from the Q&As that we might be able to answer? Anything at all?
Just real quick, I wanted to echo a couple of things. Amie mentioned keeping all of your documentation, email documentation, registration confirmations, etc., on a personal email account. Please do that, because if you change your organization, if you change jobs, you might no longer have access to things that you may need in case you get audited, which is a very small 10% chance, but it does happen. I see it a lot. So, if you are going to a new job, make sure to just forward some of that backup documentation to a personal email account so you'll have that.
Yeah. One final thing I would say is that fundraising is hard. It's a hard job. CFRE, achieving your CFRE, the skills and things that you are going to learn as you progress through that journey, those 6 domains, they're going to make your job easier. And if for no other reason, do it for that reason. I want to thank everybody. This webinar is going to be available. Andrew, Dane, my friends in Canada, Toronto, one of my favorite Canadian cities, Amie and Marla, thank you all so much. Paul and Christine, love you guys and love you all and love all the fundraisers out there. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.